Thank you, Mr. Krishna, for a very informative address. I think you really laid out the government's, attitude on this urban infrastructure and what you expect from the private sector as well as the public sector to partner in this. And I think that was very, very useful. Just to take the panel forward, I think the next question that I really had was that we've talked about urban infrastructure and the need for cities and new cities coming in. What sort of cities are we looking at? What is the type of demand that we're looking at? And what is the type of urban living standards that we envisage going forward in the next 20 years or so?
The medium cities are growing faster. And in the 2001 to 11 census data, if you compare the population growth of million plus cities, though number of million plus city has gone up from 35 to 53, but the growth of population in these cities put together has been of the order of 20%, whereas the medium and small cities with a 1 lakh to 10 lakh population, the growth of population has been of the order of 40%. So we are, and it is a natural phenomenon also, not that somebody is engineering that kind of growth. There is a plateau for the larger cities, and wherever the 20% growth of larger city has happened, in quite a few cases it has happened on account of addition of the geographical addition of areas. So if you take apple to apple comparison, the growth of cities, larger cities is less than what. In fact, the population growth rate has actually declined even in Delhi also. Whereas suburbs and Ghaziabad has almost doubled in last 10 years. Population of Ghaziabad has almost doubled, and so has many other cities. So therefore, now the focus has to be on small and medium towns. And to nurture that, we are giving much higher financial support, federal support for smaller and medium towns infrastructure projects. So I would recommend that, and for planning also, for city planning and even bus systems now. This year we have introduced city bus systems for smaller cities, and we have sanctioned so far almost 9,000 buses for almost 90 cities, or an average of 100 buses per city, small towns. We are supporting in a special purpose vehicle. So those who are into transportation systems, there is a wonderful opportunity, I would say, because we feel that while cities drive the growth of the country, the transportation solutions drive the growth of the cities. So the first and foremost requirement is good roads and good transport systems end to end for the city and peri-urban area put together. So that is our, so please, we are focusing on small and medium towns, and would recommend everyone to consider that as an option. Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Kant, in the Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridor, we understand that there will be about 7 new cities and about 24 manufacturing sort of cities which will be set up. Can you shed some light on what we are proposing in those cities, or the type of cities we're looking at?
Okay. Cities, as Mr. Krishna said, will be the key drivers of growth. Actually, if you look around the world, cities account for just 3% of the Earth landmass, but they're responsible for consumption of 75% of the resources and 2/3 of the greenhouse gas emission. Now, if India is to follow the model of the Western world, you would need 4 planet Earth. But you have only 1 planet Earth, and therefore you need a far more innovative and a far more sustainable strategy of growth. As Mr. Krishna said, India has been a very reluctant urbanizer, but to my mind, it's a huge opportunity. It's a huge opportunity because India has this challenge of planning its cities well. When cities were made across Europe and America, land, gas, and water were cheaply available, and therefore they made sprawling cities. And just to give you one comparison, look at a city like Atlanta, which they created in America. 98.2% of the people travel by car. And the ecological footprint of Atlanta is 12 times more than a city like Barcelona, where 65% of the people travel by public transportation system, and another 18% of the people either cycle or walk. And therefore, the cities of India have to be made on the back of public transportation system. To my mind, the key is public transportation system so that we make cities which are sustainable. The second challenge for India is how do you use technology to leapfrog? And I think that is the big opportunity, because tomorrow's cities have to be smart cities. They have to be smart and intelligent cities. They have to be ubiquitous cities. And India has a huge opportunity in this. One of the key things we are doing in the Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, and just to give you a broad overview, this is 1,483 kilometers from Delhi to Mumbai. Today, all the goods move by lorries. It takes about 13 to 14 days. By 2017 end, there'll be a dedicated freight corridor, which will be a container train, which will carry all goods produced in the northern part of India through a container train, and that will put goods into the ports on the western coast of India in 14 hours. So from 14 days to 14 hours, it's a revolutionary shift. It's a paradigm change in India, which will take place. Now, when goods shift from road to rail, this will open up a completely new route of India, and it opens up the possibility of new urbanization, new manufacturing, new urbanization. To my mind, if India has to grow at rates of 9 to 10% per annum to lift a vast segment of its population above the poverty line, there's no other alternative but to drive manufacturing. To drive manufacturing at rates of 13, 14% per annum for 3 decades. And a logical consequence of the manufacturing process has to be the process of urbanization, because young workers will move in. You have to shift a vast segment of your population from agriculture to manufacturing. Urbanization must create jobs. And this process of urbanization has to be well planned. What we are seeing today in India from here as we move towards Rajasthan is all unplanned urbanization. The process of planning has to be well planned on the back of very good, to my mind, what I call as the trunk infrastructure. That is the process of good drainage, good sewage, good public transportation, recycling of water. This must form the backbone. And this is what we are doing in the 7 planned cities. We've got some of the best planners from across the world to plan this out. And the backbone of this city, once you've done the backbone, the government must fund this trunk infrastructure, which is what the government is doing. So create the backbone, the trunk infrastructure, and integrate the process of planning. This is the first time it's happening anywhere in the world, that the process of geographical planning has been converged with the process of technological planning. ICT plans have been converged with geographical planning. So IBM, Cisco, etc. have worked with companies like CH2M, AECOM, Jurong of the world to integrate the technology plans with this so that India can make a quantum jump. And now we are creating the backbone of this trunk infrastructure. And then after the trunk infrastructure has been created, the private sector can come in. And this requires, so the state governments have brought the land. We are from Government of India doing the trunk infrastructure. And the intention is that use the DMIC to make a big quantum jump in India's process of manufacturing. Now, starting with DMIC, the Government of India has planned out the Chennai-Bangalore corridor. It's planned out the Eastern corridor, Calcutta to Ludhiana, and planned out the Bangalore to Mumbai corridor. So the next 3 to 4 decades, what India will see is a process of clusterized development. Cluster on the back of transport corridors and urbanization taking place on the back of these transport corridors. And this provides a big opportunity for India to use good transportation technology, use good urbanization planning, and use ICT planning, and use companies like Cisco, IBM, etc. to make a big quantum jump in its process of urbanization and creates job in its manufacturing and urbanization.
So, Mr. Talwar, given this big urbanization push, both, from the central government as well as all these corridors coming up and, new cities coming up, how do the developers look at this as opportunity?
I'll pick up where both my colleagues have left off. That yes, Government of India is doing playing its own role in providing infrastructure, in planning out new cities. And I think one word which Amitabh used was a key word, that therein lies the opportunity. All of you come from various countries in the world. A country which has 1.2 billion people, where the process of urbanization is only next to either agricultural production or internal security. I think that is the huge opportunity which lies as far as business goes, and I think that's what we are all really interested in. That whether it is infrastructure which you must have developed and which you must have discussed in the morning, or what Amitabh has just told you, that, and Sudhir has told you about transport systems, about the railways, In fact, just to give a key thing, railways and investment into railways can alone be the pointer to the largest power system. Any rail company could become the largest power company in India. It could become the largest water company in India. And it could become the largest telecom company in India. Because if you have towns being developed and cities being developed as is being planned out on the 4 corridors, could you imagine the amount of requirement for power, for telecom, for water? And I think on that depends that how are our cities going to come up, in what planned a manner will they come up, that will they have IT systems? You have an opportunity for the best companies in the world, as told by Amitabh. Will you have sewage systems? We have a huge problem in India. We've treated rivers traditionally as the sewage, dump of the last resort. We will never get clean rivers. We keep on wondering why we're not getting clean rivers. You cannot dump waste into a river and then hope for it to be clean. So every bit of waste has to be processed on land. Water has to be recycled. I think therein lies great opportunities. Similarly, transport. Both of them have said what the government is doing, and the central thought of the government that yes, you will have to have a lesser ecological footprint. You will have to make more sustainable cities. We have a satellite city which has just come up on the borders of Delhi where walk to work culture is provided for. In fact, public transport is just kicking in and we've leapfrogged. We've not only got the metro coming in from Delhi, we've also got the world's first private sector metro which is on a round robin system there. And it's being extended now to cover a major area of that new satellite city, Gurgaon. Similarly, whether it is buildings, I think both of them have brought out this need that Indian cities cannot sprawl. In any case, with the new Land Acquisition Act, it will be hugely, hugely difficult. We have to go upwards, we have to go vertical, and thereby provide for water recycling, for water harvesting, for renewable energy sources to be exploited over there, for safety systems to be installed and to be inculcated. And we have to have greenery around those areas which lends you to a better quality of life. I think to that extent, any of you and all of you, when you put pressure on India, you get plenty of ministers, if not bureaucrats, going all over the world for the last 30, 40 years, trying to promote NRI investment and foreign investment into India. Please do emphasize to them that yes, two things need to be made easier. From the private sector point of view, I can tell you, and Sudhir was very kind to touch on this aspect, that we have a mixed experience of PPP, public-private partnership, because very often not very many policymakers and implementers of policy understand that PPP means an equal amount of risk-taking by the government. They very often confuse it with a contract. That once you signed a PPP, every clearance is your responsibility, financial closure is your responsibility, adherence to rules and regulations is your responsibility, and I am there to check where you go wrong and to more often show you the way that it cannot be done. The government has to take a step forward in its thinking and its mindset that yes, it's a risk being taken. Well-documented risks will sometimes prove success and sometimes lead to failure, but it should not account for careers of people. We have watchdog systems which excel in pointing out what went wrong and who should be held accountable. If they were really all that good, in the last 65 years, we should have had some accountability, but everyone gets away with it. Therefore, let's change the mindset. Please insist on how does doing business in India become easier. Ease of business index does not rate India as one of the countries with the greatest amount of ease. I think that's something which we've got to increase and make it easier for all of you in this market to come and exploit the opportunities which are available. Number two, we all talk in a common language that the size of the Indian economy has to be increased. That's wherein lie the opportunities for you and for private sector developers. We, at this moment, as one single company in the world, have more than 52 million square feet of ongoing construction across all segments of real estate, whether it is largely residential, because that's what is selling at the moment, but there were times when the economy was booming and therefore commercial office space was in high demand. Similarly, a retail revolution is taking place. From neighborhood markets, we are coming to large malls, and we are now seeing the onset of the first jump in volumes of malls of 4 million or 2 million square feet size, and soon into 4 million, for which the foundations were dug at the time of the boom in India from 2004 to 2009. They've been held back to ride the next wave of a peak in economic development, which is why when everyone talks of GDP growth, it is so important in a country like India that we need an unbroken stretch of near 10% growth in GDP for a good period of about 2 to 3 decades. To give you a very small example, forget about US, which has a $15 trillion economy per annum. Canada has possibly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, $3 to $4 trillion economy, huge resources, but population about 3% the size of India. I think if India's got to improve the standard of living of its own people, it's not just going to be government planning. It cannot be left to government planning alone. Government planning must only be a facilitator. We cannot depend on the government for execution of projects and large-scale participation by the private sector, because very often planning by the government means how to put forward roadblocks into private sector investment. And the main investment is not going to come through government. It never has, it never will. It has to come through the private sector. Large-scale participation in development has to come through the private sector. That's the mindset that we need to change with all of you. You're coming in from countries, you're coming in with experience, you're coming in with resources, you're coming in to improve our country. We value you. We cherish the fact that yes, you will come here and find new opportunities, because the eventual result is going to be a higher standard of living for our own people. And that's what we are committed to. Whether it's the government or whether it's the private sector, we all have the same aim. The only thing is to have a dialogue, and this is what this conference is all about, that how do we have a dialogue which is not only more honest, which is also more transparent, which is also more meaningful. And that is what, when each one of us is presenting our own perspective, we hope to achieve that yes, by the end of it all, we make it easier for all of you to come to India. We make it easier for you to invest. We have huge resources in terms of manpower, materials, even finance. It's how do we bind that structure into a meaningful business enterprise which gives you results, and which of course will have many, many more results for every company that comes into India, for Indian companies like all of us who are here in the private sector, and eventually for the government. Because that's what takes on the responsibility of not only nurturing a nation, but also seeing to it that everyone gets an equal opportunity of development, personal or business enterprise, or as a nation, for all the people of this country.
Thanks. Mr. Raheja, would you like to add some words to this?
To me, I will pick up from the analysis of the past. While India has been growing, we should look at it
that what are the kind of people who are actually moving from, migrating from rural economies to our urban economy. They are largely the people who are either coming looking for employment, or they are coming, second maybe, they're coming for education. And that's how the things are happening. Balances maybe some nuclearization of families and interrelationships and all, which are moving the people from rural areas to the urban areas. We have, I think every sixth person on the planet is Indian, and we have more than 540 million young people which are below the age of 35. We have not yet actually seen in the past what has happened. What we are going to see is going to be now, because we हमने बहुत बच्चे तो बहुत पैदा हुए हैं इंडिया में लास्ट 2-3 decades में, but now they will be asking for gainful employment, and for giving them gainful employment they have to move from rural areas to urban areas. Already, although the migration has taken place only up to 40 million, 40%. And coming till 2030, we are expecting it to rise to 60, contributing to 70% of employment of workforce and 70% of GDP also. Are we prepared? Of course, attempts like Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, attempts like regional development, we are looking at that. I would agree with the vision of the government that regional development is the key. You cannot move all the people to metropolitan cities. You have to have inclusive growth across the country. And for that, you need to create centers. It's not necessary that you can create only along transit corridors. You have to look at, while you make DMIC corridors, maybe from Bangalore to Chennai or from Ludhiana to Calcutta or from Delhi to, but where will the people of Chhattisgarh go? Where will be the people in Madhya Pradesh, in other parts of UP, in other states? Where will they go? You need to give inclusive development all around. And for that, you need to create infrastructure in a way where you have the cities which cater to, number one, education and skill development. Number two, what are the resources in those particular regions and which kind of industrialization and growth you are looking at. So it needs I think, larger vision, larger planning, larger understanding of the entire subject. But since we are rushing and opportunities are, I think, opening up faster than we are prepared to. So whatever is available should be taken, should be grabbed. DMIC corridor में आपके a lot of cities are, 7 cities are coming, and we are also opening up opportunities, and developers have largely, I think many developers are also aggregating lands. It is where you should look at joining together with a new system. We should look at it, number one, जब migration होगा, the first thing is when you get the people coming to work in these places, we should give transit accommodation which is not ownership based but on rental based. Then we need to give them a accommodation which is to be given under PPP model. Make provision, let those people who are putting up industrial units, let them make a permanent accommodation for worker housings. And then there should be integrated training systems and training programs, interchange of knowledge, skill development, and also development of technologies. So these all aspects have to be looked into from a larger perspective. Just simply moving people, doing that way, I think it's not going to really, it's again going to, although it's going to help, but if you want real good thing, you need a total sustainable cities where there's a complete water recycling. Water is going to be the biggest problem in this country. Your rivers, I think, get drained by they reach, Jamuna reaches Delhi, it is drained. Ganga, water is also short. You don't have many more, flowing rivers which will give you water. So only solutions are your cities have to be total self-sustained recycling, and all these aspects have to be thought, integrated, and looked into that next 20 years, how we should move forward. And we need to look at available opportunities में मैं सोच रहा हूँ मैं platform है तो मैं भी थोड़ा सा एक बात कर लेता हूँ मैंने अभी about 7 years ago government came out with a policy through Act of Parliament for special economic zones. Unfortunately the things could not move. Now there has been a good policy that SEZs have been allowed to get denotified and serve to the domestic tariff areas. And those SEZs now all initially they were focused at only largely as export hubs, but now they can serve to the biggest consumer revolution जो आ रहा है country में, they can serve to that also. So you should, government has facilitated that these SEZs now can develop into industrial cities, smart cities, IT cities, IT parks. So everything can be done in that. It's a huge opportunity कि जो what we left when the government had put mat on that. This is the time you should come and join there. Join there through, education hubs, through skill development hubs, through putting up IT parks, BPOs, by putting up industrial units. So all these opportunities are there. And we all are available for, helping and tying up on a PPP mode. And I am very sure in coming time, the India is actually going to change. The young generation has awakened. We have seen what is happening now in the country. They will make us work. They will make governments work because you cannot stop them. Now they are all grown up young guys. You cannot keep them just like that. You cannot keep them under a old system of governance. So let's create those opportunities together, and investments are required, opportunities are there. So revolution is a economic revolution, and a overall revolution is waiting to happen in this country, which you will see in just, I think, if not coming few years, maybe even in coming few months also. You will see a kickstart of several things happening in a different platform, in a different way. It may be anybody, but these young tigers are going to force you to act for their employment and for their future.
Thanks. Mr. Krishna, if you look at the urban infrastructure sector, there are various subsectors in it, whether it's urban transport, water supply, sewage management, solid waste management, or lighting. Where would you think are the more, where is the thrust of the government, and where you would like investment to come in, and what would be the, subsector that you would, tell the people here that those are the investment opportunities really from their perspective?
Number one is public transport systems. And now we have realized, that urban development creates wealth. That was a theory, but we are seeing that it is actually happening, and it is being realized also. It was happening to an extent, but not being realized. And if it is creating wealth, and we say cities are engines of growth, that growth means economic growth. And properly guided, it becomes inclusive growth. It takes care of all. It take care of elderly, take care of disabled, take care of all those who are weak in one or the other way. So it becomes guided and becomes inclusive. So it creates wealth, then that wealth can be harnessed to create the infrastructure or fund the infrastructure. And in that paradigm, the first and foremost player is the transport solutions. So public transport solutions, of which the backbone for larger cities is the metro rail systems, followed by in the medium cities, and even in the larger cities as a feeder service, the bus-based systems are there, or light rail transit systems are there, and so on. And down the line in the hierarchy, but nonetheless extremely important, are like public bicycle systems and good walkways and so on. So the first investment, and then since it is creating wealth, we were doing research all along as why we can't fund the infrastructure. I said that is in theory, yes. Then when the DMRC, the first stage of Delhi Metro was introduced, phase 1, and the rate of return declared FIR, EIR, people are showing anything, and that is all right. That is okay. That gives a lot of happiness to many people. But when the actual hard money is there, then you require the financial rate of return. And the DMRC, the phase 1 was giving a return of about 2% or so. And now then we went on refining that and forcing people that the governments, local governments and state governments, and it is creating wealth. Why are you not harnessing the wealth to fund the project? Why don't you increase the FIR? And then we did some research as to comparing the EIRR versus FIRR. Where is the gap? And who is taking away that difference? And now today the position is the latest sanctioned metro rail project is Jaipur Metro, which is giving an FIRR of 8.25%, followed by Pune Metro Rail about 11% and so on. So urban development creates wealth and it can fund the project. And so those who are designing the project should not only be willing to offer the solution in terms of technology and so on, but also give a little nudging to the sponsors that if you really do a little bit of policy tweaking, you can generate wealth for your project also, not only for society as a whole, not only for economic return, so to say, but even for financial return you can. And then similarly now for the bus projects also, we are nudging the states to ensure that, because that is the responsibility of federal government, nudge the state. Actual work in urban development is to be done by law, by constitution, by the states, but the federal government has the responsibility and the resources to nudge the states to move into action of what is the desirable and doable thing also. So therefore, in bus-based also, we have insisted that FIR must be created and state governments must underwrite losses of the SPV. So in the first instance, we say city bus operations will be in SPV mode, not by SRTCs, State Road Transport Corporation, but special purpose vehicles created. For smaller towns, 3-4 towns put together, or 5-10 towns put together can be one SPV, which and so many states are now doing, and state government has to underwrite losses. So it becomes a viable proposition. So I said number 1 is this, and number 2, of course, is water supply and sanitation and so on and so forth.
Yeah, Mr. Kant, along the DIMIC corridor, where would you look at, private investment? In which parts of the DIMIC would you really look at private investment coming in?
See, there are 7 cities, starting with Dholera, which is about 920 square kilometer, which is one of the largest urban development around the world in Gujarat. Then there's Shendra in Maharashtra. There's Pithampur Dhar Mao in Madhya Pradesh. There is Manesa Bawal in Rajasthan, and there's one city being finalized in Haryana, and one in Uttar Pradesh, beyond Greater Noida. All these have been planned. The plans have been notified in all these cases. We are believers that in all these cities, in addition to planning being done first and plans being notified, everything should be done by the private sector. So all contracts, everything, even the trunk infrastructure is being done by the private sector. But we are believers that projects must be well structured and projects must have all approvals in hand before. Part of the problem in PPP projects has been that they have not been well structured and projects have not been well de-risked. So it's very important that when we do SPVs, all the approvals must be housed in that SPV. And that is the hard work which we are putting into the project. And that is about, to my mind, adding about 35 to 40% of the value into the project, so that the private sector takes only the private sector risk and actually gets into execution and is able to generate a return. And this is exactly what we are doing in each one of these projects. So in addition to the cities, we are doing 5 multimodal logistic hub. We are doing an airport in Dholera and in Rajasthan. There are very vast opportunities, not only in PPP, in EPC contracts, because the initial trunk infrastructure. We are believers that you can't come back 4 decades later and then say that we want to do retrofitting. And India is a great believer in that we do retrofitting later. But you can't do this. So the drainage, the sewage, the solid waste, the ICT component, the lighting component, all is being done first. That detailed engineering has been done, and that, to my mind, is the key. Because once you've done detailed engineering, which will enable it to take, these are all contracts which will go out to private sector on EPC contracts, and rest will be on PPP. So we are believers that private sector is here to generate wealth. It must make money. It must get a good rate of return. But the government must structure projects, must de-risk projects, and must have all the approvals in place. And that is what DMICDC is doing in all these projects.
There's a question there.
I'm very thankful for some of the environmentally sensitive comments made by Mr. Reja and Mr. Khan. However, the fact is today the world sees a CO2 concentration in the air of over 400 parts per million, which is already way above what it should be, and our climate is showing that effect. So increasing the carbon footprint anywhere on the planet is not going to make the 400 parts per million that we already suffer from. We are already seeing major storms and weather changes seen. I am from Canada, Toronto. Last July we had a major storm and it really wiped out a lot of our infrastructure. Just wiped out. And a few weeks ago, we had a freezing rainstorm that snapped all the electric structures. And they were well planned ones. Just because of the weight of the ice on the wires, they just snapped. And for 3 days, Toronto was in the dark. And this is in the middle of the winter. And people were shielded in their homes. There was no heat, no light, nothing. So let us not be so complacent about the world's weather system as if it is going to continue in the past. The fact is that the carbon footprint in the West is already too high. Roughly speaking, let me remind you that it is said that at a 7 billion population, we can only have about 2 tons of CO2 per capita. India and Africa is below that limit as of now. Rest of the world, China, Europe, and North America are way above that limit.
What's the question?
What's the question you have?
The question is, you cannot build sustainable cities in an unsustainable world.
Okay,
Try to
sir.
that.
I think both of us have the same answer. If he misses out anything, I'll add to that.
See, one must understand that, latest studies by McKinsey for India says that by 2030, you will have 350 million additional Indians getting into the process of urbanization. By 2050, you will have 700 million Indians getting into the process of urbanization. Now, urbanization is inevitable in India. You can't have a scenario where the West has urbanized. We are talking at a point where America is urbanized, where Europe is urbanized, where China is nearing its process of urbanization. When India's process begins, you say India should not urbanize. How is that possible? It's not possible that you say the rest of the world urbanizes, India should stop its process of urbanization and remain poor. It's not possible. The challenge for India is not to repeat the mistakes of the West. The West has messed up its process of urbanization. The West, when it did its process of urbanization, created all the sprawls in the world. Its car companies bought over the railway companies, destroyed them. It made cities for cars. The lesson for India is that it must create cities which are sustainable, which are innovative, where we integrate technology, which are based on recycling. The challenge for India is to create a model for the rest of the world, cities which are compact, which are dense, and which have recyclable water and recyclable waste. And I think that is the challenge for India. Now, urbanization is inevitable. It's happening in an unplanned manner. The challenge is, how does India do it in a planned manner and holds out a lesson for the rest of the world?
So I think that's,
You can't say that the pollution has been created by the West. It's created by Canada. It's created by America. And now you come and lecture us that you don't do urbanization. No, please go and lecture Canada and America. Don't lecture us in
okay,
India
sir,
on that.
I'll give it on a
The
more peaceful.
challenge is innovative, sustainable urbanization, which can teach Canada and America.
I do lecturing on both sides of the.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for doing that for us. It's time that people in Canada and Toronto began wearing sweaters during winter and didn't go around in t-shirts in their homes and overheating them. I think that's what is added to the whole gamut of this over-exploitation of resources, which my colleague is trying to say. We are really, really perturbed about this, that the developed world is now telling the developing world that, sorry, you don't need to develop. We'll take care of everything else, and we'll sell things to you. I think we're giving you an opportunity of coming here and saying that, yes, whatever mistakes have been committed there over the last 100 years, only in 100 years, the entire world and the planet, as you know, was a fairly green planet till the effects of industrialization were exploited by the West. We're asking you that please learn the lessons from there, come and help us out. There's large chunks of humanity which need to be looked after, whether it is South America, whether it is Africa, or whether it is the Asian region. You'd be surprised to know that between the 10 ASEAN nations bordered by Japan, South Korea, China, and India, we have half the world's population. Should they be denied the effects of a good, wholesome living for the next 100 years, just as many of you have enjoyed it for the past 100 years? In fact, if we know NRIs over here, you've partaken in that process. For 400 years, we have given free FDI to Western Europe and North America. And that FDI was in the form of what Mr. Sudhir Krishna said, empires, was in the form of bullion, was in the form of raw materials. And undoubtedly, I think we still salute the West for its innovation, for its industrialization, for its progress. But I think now is the time when the entire world is asking for it. So you cannot have such parameters, you know, which is like a typical railway compartment in India, that whoever gets in says, now lock the doors, we'll kick the others out. That kind of thing has got to stop, and we've got to come back to more sustainable development around the world.
Excuse me, can I ask one question? My question is to Mr. Amitabh Kant, somebody who is planning to convert India into a superpower. Okay, my name is Siddiq.
Listen, I have no such ambition.
No, it's because
I am just a project manager, and my challenge is to deliver a project well. I have no challenge of making India a superpower.
No. This is what I'm coming to the point, because you are working very hard and making a lot of plans to make India a superpower. It's clear. But you know what is happening in India? Most of the super brains of India is going abroad, like Canada, Australia, America, and they build and develop that countries. India is a victim for such a, what do you call it, a brain, I forget the name. So, to make India a superpower, now Mr. Naveen M. Raheja also told, to change India. So, being a key government official, why don't you make a plan to bring the super brains of the world to India? Because whatever you see in this world come from outside. What are inventions? 99.99% of the inventions we are using now from this world is come from outside. We can't say it is from India, we can't say from a particular country. So the brain belong to the God Almighty. The super brains can be anywhere. So why don't you make like America? America developed, America become a superpower by using the brains of all the world. All the world. So, yeah, America become America by using the Indian brain, the Nepali brain, the African brain, the whole brains of humanity. So why can't we make a plan to bring all super brains of the world to India? Whether it is from America, whether it's from Canada, whether it's from Nepal, any part of the world, to develop a plan to make India superpower. Because there is no country in this world like India, blessed with the best climate, all kinds of resources, all kinds of manpower, but only need a super plan. And it can convert India like America or any superpower within the next 25 years. Thank you.
Yeah, listen,
How do we get policies which will bring in the best in the world?
This policy has to be made. We have to make a special reason. Yesterday I met Mr. Modi, and I told him, bring all super brains to India. You make a plan for that. Bring all inventors, not only innovators. Bring all inventors. Inventors only can change the world, not the innovators. A lot of inventors are in India, but we are not giving any support for them. Because I am in Saudi Arabia, recently the King Abdullah, he started a mission called Ibtikar.
listen, are you asking a question or are you making a parallel presentation?
Okay, I'm just
No,
giving an
so ask
example.
a question, no?
Yeah, this is being
No,
a,
you have made your point.
yeah.
So just ask a question.
Yeah, this is
And
what I
questions,
request
you
you.
know,
I request Mr. Amitabh
know-
Khan, all of you, to make a plan to bring the super brains of India, not taking out the super brains to outside. Then only we can make India a superpower. Thank you.
Let me just respond to it very briefly. I'm chief executive of a project. My mandate is to deliver a project. That is my task. I must deliver that project on time within its specified financial outlays. My job mandated to me is not to change India and not to get brains from all over the world. Let's be clear. If I deliver my project, India will grow.
This question is not only for you,
Yeah,
to
that's
Mr.
what-
Naveen Raheja, who want to change India to a superpower, and all of you, all the people here. It's not only for you, all the people of India, in India and abroad. This question, it's something has to be done.
Sure.
Make a policy. That's
Actually,
all.
we quite agree with you that free flow of intellect, whether it's from India, whether it's back to India, should be allowed. We are one with you. We're not in any way, but yes, we have to come out with policies which
Because-
attract.
Yeah. Why I think like this, because I'm Saudi Arabia since 15 years.
You must
So,
understand.
point is
My
taken.
question,
Yeah.
my question is to Mr. Naveen Raheja. Going through his background, I was very much inspired. He started his journey in 1978 with the $100. I would like to ask him, the pupil of my aspirations, that when he started his journey 1978 with $100, what he had in mind. That is number one. Secondly, what he will suggest to the aspiring pupil like me to go ahead with the journey. What is his what USP he will suggest? That is not. Last question. He is heading Naritco. In his profile, it is mentioned that affordable housing is his focusing. In my business, I return from the railway station to my house in late night. Sometime I catch my train in early morning. I feel very bad when I return at night and I see hundreds of people on the road are sleeping. Most of them are rickshaw pullers, laborers. Number one. When I go and catch my train in the morning, early morning, I notice that lot of people who sleeps on roads, maybe outsiders, are finding for toilet the desert place. Can Mr. Raheja assure me that he will suggest in affordable housing and to his social responsibility that toilet and porta cabin shelters at night in the urban development should not be overlooked by him, by the government of India. for the urban development. This should not be
Yeah,
overlooked.
I would,
Thank
you know, I would request you if you can just take it offline with Mr. Raheja because there are other questions. So we'll just if you take this offline.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll take it at the end if you want. If you want to quickly
Go
put
ahead,
it.
please. Yeah, आपका- the other people who are asking, and then we can all
There's
answer.
someone
together.
there who was asking. Yeah. Please.
Yeah,
Someone-
please go
Request,
ahead.
yeah, request is just
very
a
simple question for
Yeah.
Mr. Kant. Just wanted to know, when are the trunk infrastructure projects for those 7 cities likely to go to tender?
Okay, we'll reply to that too, of course, sir. Please ask.
Anybody?
This Delhi Mumbai corridor is in proposal for since last 8 or 9 years, and in 2006 we gave proposal for solar electrification on the highways, particularly where the electrification on the ground level can be difficult to manage. We discussed this project because it is 50% Japanese aid is coming to that. I discussed this project with Japanese ambassador in that, and his answer was that yes, if you can get the project of electrification, we gave proposal to Gujarat government on that for certain parts of the road to be done with solar lighting, and at that stage the cost was a bit higher, but now with the cost of solar panels and the LED lights have come down, this project is feasible. But when we approached that, we were told that the roads are being built by the contractor and you have to deal with a subcontractor who can be responsible for this electrification of the roads. So is there any way we can electrify with partially Japanese funding and Japanese technology part of this Delhi-Mumbai corridor?
Yeah, first of all, the Delhi-Mumbai corridor was approved by the government of India in September 2011. So it's not 6-7 years or anything like that. No, discussion can go on for 20 years. Approval was given in 2011, September. Approval was conveyed in December 2011. So 12-13. We are at the end of 12-13. We finished the planning, got the plans notified, and detailed engineering are underway. Now the contracts for the EPC,
Tenders for
the tenders for the Dholera and Shindra will be out in another 4.5 months time for the entire trunk infrastructure. That is the first 50 odd square kilometer of Dholera and the first 40 odd square kilometer of Shindra for the EPC, eight layers of trunk infrastructure below, the wet infrastructure and the dry infrastructure.
I think Mr.
That's presently at a very advanced stage.
Raheja for his answer.
Yeah, Mr. Raheja, if you could.
78, I passed out MBE and I simultaneously did journalism. My father had expired in 76. So I had to be on my own from much earlier. I had been incidentally topper of schooling, and I broke all the records. My records of schooling now have broken in northern India, particularly lately it became Haryana Board for School Education, Secondary Education. That was broken in 1998 by somebody by the name of Moti Rao. So, but my studies happened with the saving of my scholarships, those $100 or about 5,000 rupees which I had in my Vijaya bank account in 1978. I started with that. I got through most of the competitive exams, but at that time I had a vision of doing something on my own because I thought I can do better on my own. And that confidence kept me carrying forward. I think I never left an opportunity, whatever came my way. And I never left it for even the day. I'm the first one who started with the scooter agency. I was the first dealer of ECTVs when Asiad came in 1982. I was the first dealer of computers when they came in India. So everything was done, whenever the opportunity came my way. And when real estate came, I found it to be better than all others, So so it started making quicker money and faster growth. And it continues to be the same. Let me tell you that. India is growing. We have to create opportunities are there, very vast opportunities are there. And I think sky is the limit. It is only how much investment you can further bring in what manner, and how good systems you can develop so that they should not be based upon, uh, you know, directly worker just काम करते हैं आपके लोग काम करते हैं तो it should not be they should be well defined, well controlled by IT processes, accountable, and people focused at people getting incentivized when they work automatically in an automatic system. Not that you make them कि आप काम करें. It should be that they work for themselves. So you just think a human brain works first for himself, then for the second person. Nobody is going to work for his boss. He's going to work for his own self. So you have to devise those systems. आज कंट्री में जो ग्रोथ है, अगर इसको करने के लिए एक करेक्ट विजन जो है, दैट इज व्हाई से जो मिस्टर राजीव तलवार साहब ने कहा, you have to do ease of doing business index. And our country, which is so good on IT, I at times get amazed why don't we put all these things in a well worked out and well defined written down system followed by IT processes, that everything becomes online. It can be done. It is not a difficult job. Yeah, if that is done, I'm sure we are estimating our country growth to be going for next 3 decades के बाद ये होगा, 2 decades के बाद ये होगा. I think if you give these people, these young people, freedom to work, but keep those controls online and define those parameters, this country can change in just 5 years.
Thanks. Good. I just add a little bit to answer your question because you had raised it. You wanted shelters, you wanted toilets. Yeah, for urban development. You are very correct. It's not porter cabins. You're taking up the recent one that many people have volunteered to give porter cabins for night shelters. Yeah, but the real truth lies that each one of these 1.2 billion people expect a roof over their heads, whether they come into the cities or whether they're staying in rural areas. I think the great thing which we have to now impress upon Sudhir, and plus the fact that Amitabh is going into such good cities which will be made, is the FAR. That please allow the greater amount of FAR, because the larger the supply, the lower will be the price and more affordable will housing be. Your facilities for those who are coming in transit or who are coming in search of employment and therefore necessarily today have to sleep on railway platforms, on the verges of the roads, on pavements. I think their supply will also increase. The shelters, temporary shelters for them will increase. As far as toilet goes, in fact, we were just discussing with Sudhir that why don't you include toilets along railway lines as a part of JNNURM? Because the most unseemly sight in the morning on any railway station or train is people using the railway lines. I think, this city, Delhi, in fact, has done a great job on public toilets. You find it along roads, you find it along shopping centers, you find it along parks. I think it's time that we focused on another area called the railway or the trunk infrastructure, transport infrastructure. In fact, when you enter this town or this city at any border, you don't find a public toilet. So how about roads too? And one portion which I think everyone's missing out, food's got to be a primary requirement in any urban agglomeration. You don't produce food within that same city. And therefore, cold storages, silos for grains need to come in and will come in into every urban agglomeration, whether it is small or whether it is big. Indians will have to get fresh fruits, they will have to get fresh vegetables, they will have to get an uniform supply of vegetables, fruits and cereals. And I think for that, storage opportunities will offer a great thing in business. I think many a billionaire will be thrown up in India just by providing storage facilities for food, because that is something which will remain in demand all throughout, even when smaller towns develop or when bigger towns do. So that's a huge opportunity for all of you.
I would like to carry. Thank you.
I'll exchange
I would like to carry it further. I mean, your
Yeah.
answer, last step, I
Please.
think I forgot, which
Yeah.
Talwar Sahab had taken care of.
Please,
I'll again come back on that.
please.
Delhi, where we took the first slum rehabilitation project in Delhi, and that was about 5 years ago. You know, I was talking about ease of doing Kathputli.
Yeah.
The complex to rehabilitate those 2,800 families in situ, in the same place. I have done my work many years ago. I have created 2,800 houses there. And it is what is stopping it? I have given them complete water recycling, drinking water RO, which you cannot, even dream of giving to Juggi dwellers. And all the facilities for their employment, performance, because Kathputli people are mainly the people who are performers, everything has been done, children parks, and the people who are to be shifted and for whom ultimately those towers are to be made, they and me, we are running from pillar to post since last several years now. Huge investment made by my company is awaiting ki let it move further. The problem is ease of doing business when it comes to certain areas जहाँ पे लोगों के अपने interest आ जाते हैं, and if you want to remain with your clean ideology and don't want to do that, then you face a lot of hurdles also here. So learning that back, आप लोग सब हैं यहाँ पे, मैं आपको बताता हूँ कि DMIC corridor के अंदर also, I think अब अरविंद केजरीवाल जी आए हैं तो वो कह रहे हैं मैं झुग्गियों में बसा दूंगा. सब लोगों से बात कर रहे हैं. I hopefully these people will get relocated in next 1 year. If they want to, they can do in 24 hours.
Yeah.
But hopefully, I'm still keeping my fingers crossed. It may happen. But if it happens, it is going to set an example.
Yeah.
ये project मैंने सिर्फ CSR के कारण से लिया था. I thought that nobody is taking this work. And if nobody will take, my country will remain with slums only. So somebody has to set an example. And I had a probably very strong conviction and confidence in me that I'll be able to do it. Even my own people, some of them, my staff is also sitting there, they visited the site because the work is to be done by them. They said कि यहाँ पे कौन काम कर सकता है जी, इतनी स्मेल है, इतनी गंदगी है यहाँ इस स्लम में, कोई चल ही नहीं सकता यहाँ तो काम कैसे करेंगे? But I said no, we will do it. If nobody will do it, then we want to see our country like this. We have to work. So we did it. Problem हमें काम करने के लिए गंदगी और उससे नहीं आया. Problem हमें आया जो system में गंदगी है उससे.
And moreover,
And अभी आगे, since everybody is there, I'll just like to conclude कि अभी हमने जो SEZ denotify किया है, if any of you people are interested to join hands with us, my dream is to create a plug and play facility for everybody where people don't have to go through hassles of clearances and registrations and everything. That we will do.
Okay.
That we will do for everyone. You should be able to come, work, invest, do R&D, and make better and competitive products internationally and for my country. Feasible. I mean, you just work. We don't, because abhi, as far as we are facing in our organizations, I think 70% and more of my employees are engaged in statutory obligations only. And 30% हमें मुश्किल से मिलता है opportunity to actually work. But I will try to take those 70% in that city. It's an industrial city which will convert into 254 acres in Gurgaon itself. I will give that opportunity. I will take on all that 70%. Maybe 10-20% आपका online का छोड़ेंगे. और जो central, जिस चीज को we cannot in-house handle. But we will give you in-house facilities of all registrations, all follow-ups, all clearances, all returns, everything. And we will give you a place where you can start your work from tomorrow itself. And if you want to join hands with us to do that, we welcome. We welcome such attempts because that is the thing which my country needs today.
Mr. Raheja, you are an example of self-made history, which before coming here I haven't gone through. And you have experience of trying different lines, computer, electronic sort of thing. And from that vision, what I noted is about you was that you have taken the different route and difficult route throughout your life. And that's why you have reached to the place you have reached today.
So
That
I
gives you
just,
opportunity
Mr.
also.
Raheja,
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Raheja, just, I request you if you can take it offline after the session. And I'd like to thank everybody for this session, and we'll call it a close and you can progress for lunch. And Mr. Raheja, you can take it up. Thanks.
Thank you so much. We'll come back at 2:15. Thank you so much.